Well, God bless you. Thank you so much for being here today. I believe this is not just another ordinary moment. I believe this is a divine appointment. You didn't just stumble in here or click that button by accident. No. This is the day the Lord has made. And I believe something powerful is about to shift in your life. I believe your mind is getting stronger, your thoughts clearer, your peace deeper, and your joy more secure. I believe you're stepping into a new season of clarity, confidence, and calm. Because today, we're talking about something that affects every part of your life, OSTEEN. You see, life will throw all kinds of noise at you. Fear, anxiety, confusion, pressure. The world will tell you what you're not, remind you of what you did wrong, try to trap you in worry and shame. But God didn't create you with a chaotic spirit. He didn't form you to live mentally defeated, stressed out, or burdened down. He gave you power. He gave you love. And He gave you a sound mind. A sound mind is not a timid mind. It's not a mind that gets shaken every time the storm shows up. It's a mind anchored in truth. It's a mind that says, I may not know the future, but I know who holds it. A sound mind is a settled mind. It doesn't run wild with fear. It doesn't bow to insecurity. It stands strong in faith, even when circumstances don't make sense. Some of you today, you've been battling inner turmoil. You're smiling on the outside, but inside, your thoughts are running 1,000 miles an hour. You can't sleep, you can't focus, and it feels like your peace walked out the door. But let me remind you have been equipped with everything you need to silence the storm within. That's right. You're not helpless. You're not broken. You're not defeated. You are filled with power, filled with grace, and filled with peace. And peace isn't the absence of trouble. It's the presence of God in the middle of it. When your mind is sound, your life becomes stable. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop worrying and start trusting. You stop doubting and start believing again. A sound mind renews your strength. It helps you walk through fire and not get burned. It helps you stay calm in crisis and stay hopeful in hardship. And here's the good news: you don't have to earn a sound mind. You don't have to fight for it. You just have to receive it. It's already yours. The enemy may try to fill your head with lies, but you've got truth on your side. He may try to cloud your judgment, but clarity is your inheritance. He may try to drown you in fear, but faith is your anchor. So I want to speak it over you today. You have a sound mind. You have a peaceful mind. You have a protected mind. No more living in panic. No more sleepless nights. No more negative thinking. This is your turning point. This is the day confusion breaks and clarity rises. This is the day fear flees and faith stands tall. You are not the victim of your thoughts. You are the master of them. You're not losing your mind. You're gaining strength in it. Every battle may start in the mind, but so does every breakthrough. And I believe your breakthrough is already in motion. So don't let fear shout louder than your faith. Don't let worry take the driver's seat. You've got the spirit of power, the spirit of love, and the spirit of a sound mind. There are moments in life when everything around us seems to be moving too fast, too loud, and too chaotic. Responsibilities stack up. Relationships strain. Finances tighten. Unexpected news arrives and shakes our plans to the core. In those times, it's tempting to feel like we're being tossed around, like we're trying to stand firm on shifting sand. But while the world may spin wildly around us, we have been designed to live from a center that does not move. A place deep within where stability exists regardless of how unstable things may seem on the outside. That steadiness doesn't come from having a perfect life. It doesn't come from every bill being paid, every relationship being flawless, or every day being easy. It's deeper than that. It's about living from a place where your internal world is stronger than your external environment. You may still face deadlines, disappointments, and difficulties, but you face them with a quiet confidence that refuses to bow to pressure. It's not denial. You see what's happening. You acknowledge the reality. But instead of crumbling under the weight of it all, you lean into something greater. You begin to draw from a place not built on emotion or opinion, but on truth and assurance. You begin to move through your days, not like a person panicking, but like someone who knows they're held, even when they don't have all the answers. This kind of steadiness doesn't mean you won't feel the winds. You'll still have moments where thoughts try to race and doubts try to whisper. You'll still face times when you don't know how it's all going to work out. But you don't let those feelings drive your choices. You don't let fear become your voice. You don't let worry lead your decisions. You've learned that your response matters more than your reaction, and your focus matters more than your fear. There's a calmness that becomes possible when you remember who is truly in control. Life may feel unpredictable, but you aren't depending on chance. You're not just hoping everything randomly works out. You're trusting that even the chaos can serve a purpose. You stop being overwhelmed by every challenge and start facing them with a new lens. You say to yourself, this situation doesn't get to dictate my peace. This moment may be big, but my perspective is bigger. Over time, that way of thinking becomes your pattern. You don't jump to conclusions. You don't assume the worst. You don't replay negative conversations on a loop. You train yourself to pause. You take a step back before you speak, before you react, before you worry. And in that pause, something powerful happens. You regain your footing. You remember what matters. You refuse to hand your emotions over to every passing fear. This posture doesn't mean you've lost your passion or your fight. It means you've channeled them differently. You've stopped wasting energy on panic and started using it for purpose. You've stopped obsessing over what's going wrong and started investing in what's still going right. You've stopped letting fear steal your sleep and started protecting your peace like a treasure. There's a maturity that grows in you when you start operating from this place. You begin to see people differently. You stop reacting to their chaos, and instead you carry peace into their storm. You become a calming presence at work, at home, even in public. Not because everything's perfect in your life, but because you've learned how to carry peace even when nothing around you looks peaceful. It changes how you pray. Instead of panic cries, you come boldly. Instead of praying from a place of desperation, you pray from a place of confidence. You're not begging to survive. You're declaring what's already been promised. You're not pleading for peace. You're walking in it. You're not living to escape the storm. You're growing right in the middle of it. This perspective affects your decisions. You're no longer led by emotion alone. You think clearly. You assess things without spiraling. You know how to wait without worrying. You know how to move forward even when you're unsure of the outcome. You don't let temporary feelings become permanent choices. You live with greater intentionality because you've learned how to quiet the noise that tries to distract you. That kind of clarity allows you to dream again. It makes room for vision. You're not just surviving the day. You're building a future. You're planning with faith, not fear. You're taking steps not based on panic, but on purpose. You may still feel afraid sometimes, but that fear no longer controls you. It may knock on the door, but you don't invite it in. You don't give it your attention or agreement. You also learn to recognize when other voices are trying to pull you off course. Every opinion doesn't deserve a response. Every crisis doesn't require your mental energy. Every conflict doesn't need your involvement. You've learned the art of emotional boundaries. You've stopped being tossed around by other people's instability. You've become grounded enough to say, "That's not mine to carry," and walk away in peace. And perhaps most importantly, you extend grace to yourself in the process. This way of thinking and living takes time. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. You'll have off days. You'll catch yourself slipping into old patterns. But you don't stay there. You correct your course. You reset your mind. You come back to what you know is true. And every time you do, you become stronger. This kind of resilience is a gift. It's a mindset that transforms how you experience everything. From relationships to responsibilities, from conflict to celebration. You stop chasing calm and start carrying it. You stop running from pressure and start rising through it. You live with a quiet strength, a peaceful posture, and a sense of inner power that cannot be stolen by outside circumstances. It doesn't mean storms won't come, but it does mean you're no longer at the mercy of them. You've built something within that no wave can shake. Fear often shows up when we least expect it. It whispers in the back of our mind before a big decision, creeps in when something doesn't go our way, and sometimes shouts when we're facing uncertainty. It feeds on the unknown, thrives in isolation, and magnifies every possible negative outcome. It doesn't need facts to operate. It just needs our attention. Once it gets our focus, it begins to spin a narrative that is often far from the truth. It paralyzes potential, silences dreams, and traps us in cycles of hesitation. But we are not meant to live confined by it. There is something more powerful available to us. Something that moves in the opposite direction of panic, that steadies us when the ground shakes, that lifts our eyes when our heads want to hang low. It doesn't pretend danger doesn't exist. It simply refuses to be controlled by it. While fear demands that we retreat, this inner force calls us to rise. It enables us to face giants without flinching, to take steps when the outcome is uncertain, and to trust even when the evidence is lacking. It changes the lens through which we view adversity. Suddenly, trials aren't signs of doom. They're opportunities for growth. Challenges aren't meant to destroy us. They're shaping us for something greater. Even setbacks are redefined. Instead of labeling them as failures, we begin to see them as setups for what's next. This mindset shifts how we navigate life. We stop letting our emotions run ahead of our logic. We stop anticipating the worst and instead prepare for the best. We stop second-guessing every move and start walking with conviction. Decisions become clearer, not because we have every detail figured out, but because we're anchored in something deeper than emotion. We stop allowing temporary feelings to distort long-term vision. When we live this way, we begin to develop a quiet courage. It's not always loud or flashy. Sometimes it simply looks like showing up again, getting out of bed after a night of tears, applying again after rejection, speaking up when your voice shakes, staying kind when bitterness tempts you, continuing forward when everything in you wants to give up. That kind of quiet strength is not weakness. It's proof of resilience. There's something powerful about learning to move forward in spite of the tension. You may feel uncertain, but you go anyway. You may feel insecure, but you step up anyway. You may not feel ready, but you say yes anyway. That's where transformation begins. You stop waiting to feel brave and start realizing you are brave. Not because you're fearless, but because you've decided not to surrender to fear. This internal shift starts to reshape your habits. Instead of procrastinating out of dread, you start taking action out of hope. Instead of avoiding difficult conversations, you start leaning into them with grace and truth. Instead of shrinking to stay safe, you start expanding because you know there's more in you. And even when things don't go the way you planned, you don't spiral. You adapt. You've trained your mind to look for the lesson, not just the loss. Over time, this becomes a lifestyle. You're no longer tossed back and forth by every worry or doubt. You have an internal compass now. You're no longer controlled by what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. You've stopped giving your energy to outcomes you can't control and started investing it in the things you can. You don't get paralyzed when things go sideways. You stay steady because you've learned how to anchor yourself in something stronger than fear. Relationships even start to shift. You're more present. You're less reactive. You listen better. You speak with more clarity. And you love without the constant fear of rejection. You're not dominated by people-pleasing tendencies anymore. You've learned how to show up authentically because you're not looking for someone else to validate your worth. You've already settled it within yourself, and that inner assurance spills into your calling. You start taking risks again. You revisit the ideas you once shelved. You begin to pursue the passions you once buried. You put your hands back to the thing you thought was over. And this time, you do it with more boldness and less fear of failure. Not because success is guaranteed, but because you know your value doesn't depend on the outcome. This way of living doesn't require that you never feel anxious. In fact, those moments will still come. The difference now is that you don't allow them to dominate. You may hear the voice of fear, but you don't listen to it like you used to. You challenge it. You question it. You compare it to truth. And every time you do, it gets quieter. Every time you resist it, you grow stronger. Even your body responds. Your sleep improves. Your shoulders relax. Your chest feels lighter. Your thoughts slow down. Your energy shifts from frantic to focused. Your brain has space to think creatively again. Your life stops feeling like a fight for survival and starts feeling like a path with purpose. This freedom doesn't just benefit you. It blesses those around you. Your peace becomes contagious. Your stability becomes a model for others. Your resilience becomes a reason for others to believe that change is possible. People see how you walk through storms, and it gives them hope for their own. And the beautiful part, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress. You're not expected to have all the answers. You're not expected to never feel nervous again. But now, you know where to turn when those moments hit. You've built a new pattern, a new default setting. You respond with faith instead of fear, with calm instead of chaos, with wisdom instead of worry. There will be days when the old voice tries to return. It may knock loudly. It may catch you off guard. But you'll remember that you're not that person anymore. You don't belong to the past version of yourself. You've grown. You've changed. You've healed. You've become someone who leads with strength, not stress. Someone who trusts what's possible, even when it's not yet visible. That mindset won't just carry you through hard days. It will elevate your best days. It won't just protect you from panic. It will position you for purpose. It won't just silence the voice of doubt. It will amplify the voice of destiny. You're no longer reacting out of fear. You're responding from a place of strength. You're not living to avoid problems. You're rising to overcome them. This is how you reclaim your life. One thought, one choice, one act of courage at a time. There's a difference between existing and truly living. One flows from reaction, the other from intention. Life has a way of pulling us in many directions. Constant notifications, responsibilities, demands, deadlines. With so much movement around us, it's easy to start moving at a pace that wasn't meant for us. And the faster we move without intention, the easier it becomes to drift into overwhelm. Stress becomes normal. Tension becomes constant. Worry becomes a companion. But what if we weren't designed to live like that? What if there's a way to operate from a rhythm that restores instead of drains? Imagine walking through your day with a deep internal steadiness, not because everything is calm on the outside, but because something in you refuses to be shaken. That kind of living is possible. It doesn't require a perfect environment. It requires a steady interior. And that steadiness isn't passive. It's something we cultivate, something we protect. When we cultivate this kind of steadiness, the atmosphere of our life changes. It begins with the way we speak to ourselves. Instead of constantly criticizing or doubting, we start affirming. Instead of fueling stress with negative self-talk, we begin to interrupt it with truth. We realize that the loudest voice we hear every day is our own. So we start using it to build rather than break ourselves. Encouragement becomes our inner language, not just something we wait to hear from others. As this mindset becomes a habit, our sense of security deepens. We no longer feel like we're on edge all the time. The small things that used to ruin our day lose their power. We stop being ruled by sudden changes and unpredictable people. We start choosing how we respond. That's where real freedom begins. Not when life is perfect, but when we no longer let imperfections control our outlook. That outlook becomes our shield. Instead of absorbing chaos, we begin deflecting it. We walk into stressful environments and bring calm with us. We deal with delays and disappointments, but they don't steal our joy like they used to. We learn how to let go of what we can't control, not because we don't care, but because we know our energy is too valuable to waste on every battle. And in that space, something beautiful happens. Clarity starts to rise. We begin to hear ourselves again. Creativity returns. Solutions become visible. Vision expands. When the internal noise quiets down, we start noticing things we couldn't see before. We stop rushing decisions and start making wise ones. We stop reacting out of emotion and start acting from insight. That doesn't mean life becomes problem-free. It means we stop being problem-driven. We don't ignore reality. We just don't let it dictate our identity. We become rooted in purpose. That purpose gives us a filter. It tells us what's worth our time, what's worth our energy, what's worth our attention. And we stop chasing every opportunity and start discerning which ones are meant for us. Relationships begin to transform in this environment. We become easier to talk to because we're not constantly tense. We're less defensive because we're not always on guard. We listen more attentively because our mind isn't a storm. We show up more fully because we're not distracted by internal battles. And because we're showing up healthier, we attract healthier connections. This way of living also redefines our rest. We no longer feel guilty for slowing down. We stop tying our value to our productivity. We realize that rest is not weakness, it's wisdom. We stop waiting for burnout to tell us when to pause. We build moments of restoration into our days, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. Our rest becomes proactive, not reactive. Over time, these practices shape our resilience. We bounce back faster from disappointments. We recover quicker from setbacks. We don't crumble when plans change. We adjust. We don't spiral when people misunderstand us. We clarify or release. We don't carry offenses like heavy baggage. We forgive and move on. That flexibility doesn't come from pretending things don't hurt. It comes from choosing not to let pain define us. This steady rhythm becomes a force. It's what helps us finish what we start. It keeps us grounded when things succeed quickly. It keeps us hopeful when progress is slow. It keeps us centered when people praise us or criticize us. We're not swayed by every opinion or circumstance. We know who we are, and we're learning how to live from that truth daily. As we grow in this, our influence expands. Not because we're louder, but because we're consistent. Not because we're flawless, but because we're faithful. People begin to notice the way we carry ourselves, the way we solve problems, the way we stay composed, the way we handle pressure. And without even trying, we become a safe place for others. Our peace becomes more than personal. It becomes communal. It affects our teams, our families, our communities. We become a thermostat, not a thermometer. We set the tone. We shift atmospheres. We model what's possible when someone decides not to be run by chaos anymore. We show what it looks like to live fully without living frantically. Even in seasons of uncertainty, we move with confidence. We may not know every step, but we trust that the path will unfold. We stop letting the unknown intimidate us. We stop needing to have every answer before we act. We stop hesitating because we fear we'll fail. We step forward with courage, knowing that clarity often comes through movement. This new way of being doesn't mean we never feel stressed again. It means we no longer make stress our home. We recognize it, process it, and then release it. We don't deny our humanity. We just stop being dominated by it. We embrace our limitations, but we also embrace our ability to grow, to change, to evolve. In this space, even our prayers change. We stop begging for things to calm down and start asking for strength to carry peace within. We stop pleading for every problem to disappear and start thanking God for the wisdom to navigate it. We trust that even in tension, something sacred is taking shape. We learn to slow our thoughts before we speak, to pause before we post, to reflect before we react. That pause is powerful. It holds the weight of wisdom, the strength of self-control, the evidence of maturity. In that pause, we often find answers we would have missed if we had rushed. Eventually, this becomes more than a lifestyle. It becomes a legacy. The people around us, especially the next generation, will watch how we handle pressure. They'll remember how we responded to the storm. They'll take note of how we carried peace, even when life didn't hand it to us. And they'll learn that it's possible to thrive in a world that constantly tries to shake you. This isn't just about feeling better. It's about becoming better. Not just surviving stress, but being transformed through it. Not just managing life, but mastering how we show up in it. This is the kind of transformation that reaches far beyond the moment. It touches everything we are and everything we do. Every day, we are surrounded by voices. Some build us up, others tear us down. Some speak truth, others speak confusion. Some come from the outside, friends, media, culture. Others come from within, the quiet thoughts, the hidden doubts, the memories that echo long after moments have passed. Among all these voices, one becomes dominant over time, the one we choose to believe. It's not always loud, but it's powerful. It shapes how we see ourselves, how we carry ourselves, and how we show up in the world. When we aren't careful, we start believing lies that were never meant to define us. Maybe someone spoke harshly to you years ago, and you've been carrying that label ever since. Maybe you experienced a failure, and you let it convince you that you're not capable. Maybe you've faced rejection so many times that it's hard to believe you're worthy of anything more. But there comes a point when we have to ask, who gets to tell us who we are? Is it the world, which changes its standards every day? Is it the people who only see one chapter of our story? Is it the past, which can't see the growth happening now? Or is it something deeper, more constant, more eternal? When we start identifying with what is true rather than what is temporary, everything begins to change. We no longer look in the mirror and see the version of ourselves that failed. We see the one that got back up. We don't replay the hurtful words. We rewrite the narrative. We replace shame with grace. We trade confusion for clarity. We choose to believe what has always been spoken over us, that we are loved, chosen, equipped, and valuable. Not because we feel it, but because we are. This internal shift is subtle, but transformative. It means you don't let insecurity take the lead in conversations. You don't walk into rooms wondering if you're enough. You don't shrink back when opportunities arise. Instead, you show up with quiet confidence, not arrogance, not perfectionism, but a grounded assurance in who you are and whose you are. This identity is not fragile. It doesn't crumble under criticism. It doesn't inflate with compliments. It stays rooted regardless of the opinions around it. That's because it's not based on performance. It's based on truth. Truth doesn't change with moods or mistakes. Truth holds steady, even when our feelings don't. As this identity strengthens, so does our capacity for relationships. When we no longer operate from a place of trying to prove ourselves, we become easier to connect with. We're not trying to compete, impress, or outshine. We're simply being. That authenticity draws the right people toward us and repels the wrong ones. We stop settling for connections that require us to be someone we're not. We stop tolerating environments that devalue our presence. We begin to recognize that healthy connection is not about fitting in. It's about being seen for who we truly are. This shift also empowers us to set boundaries without guilt. We stop overextending ourselves just to earn approval. We stop agreeing to things that drain us out of fear will be rejected. We recognize that our worth is not tied to our availability, our productivity, or our likability. We can say no and still be valuable. We can take time for ourselves and still be loved. We can speak our truth and still be worthy of belonging. With this renewed lens, we begin to understand the difference between conviction and condemnation. Conviction leads us to grow. Condemnation shames us into hiding. Conviction reminds us we're more than our mistakes. Condemnation says we are our mistakes. But when we're grounded in truth, we silence the voice of shame. We let conviction guide us gently toward healing and growth, without dragging our past behind us. And this new self-awareness doesn't make us self-centered. It actually makes us more compassionate. Because when you've done the work to see yourself clearly, You begin to see others more clearly too. You no longer judge people by their surface. You begin to recognize that everyone is fighting invisible battles, that behind every harsh word is a hurt, behind every mask is a story, behind every wall is a wound. And because you're no longer trying to validate your worth, you become a safe space for others to do the same. In this space, forgiveness flows more easily. You realize that holding on to bitterness only distorts your own identity. You stop letting someone else's actions define your view of yourself. You forgive not to excuse the behavior, but to free yourself from the false narrative it tried to write over your life. You release resentment not because they were right, but because you're ready to live free from that weight. With clarity about who you are, you also develop discernment about where you're going. You stop saying yes to things that don't align with your values. You stop chasing applause and start pursuing purpose. You don't need the spotlight to feel seen. You don't need to be busy to feel important. You don't need everyone's agreement to walk in your assignment. Your clarity becomes your compass. You move not from pressure, but from direction. This awareness also creates endurance. When life gets tough, when progress slows, when doubts return, you don't fall apart. You might feel the weight, but it doesn't define you. You might face setbacks, but you don't internalize them as permanent. You've developed a core that doesn't break with the wind. You've decided that what's true about you is not determined by how others treat you or how life unfolds in the moment. That sense of inner security becomes your anchor in the storm. It allows you to dream again because you're not afraid of failure defining you. It gives you courage to love deeply because rejection no longer erases your value. It helps you face your own flaws because growth no longer threatens your entity. You realize that you can be both unfinished and still fully worthy, both growing and deeply loved, both human and deeply significant. And the more you live from this truth, the more you reflect it outward. You start building environments at home, at work, in your friendships, where others can discover that same strength within themselves. You celebrate their uniqueness without feeling threatened. You empower their growth without needing to compete. You become a mirror reflecting not just confidence, but compassion, not just boldness, but belonging. You stop needing to hustle for your identity and start resting in it. You stop striving for approval and start walking in assurance. You stop chasing perfection and start embracing progress. You walk through life differently, not because everything around you has changed, but because you have. I want to remind you today, you are not weak. You are not broken. You are not at the mercy of life's chaos. No matter what you faced, no matter how loud the noise has been, there is a strength rising in you that cannot be shaken. You were not created to live in confusion, buried in worry, or paralyzed by fear. You were created to walk in clarity, courage, and peace. Everything you need is already within you. You don't have to chase stability. It's your birthright. You don't have to fight for calm. It's already yours. You don't have to surrender to fear when faith is standing right beside you, waiting to be activated. You have what it takes to move forward with confidence. You have the ability to quiet the lies and stand firm in truth. You have the authority to take back your thoughts, guard your peace, and protect your purpose. And even when the storm rages on the outside, you can carry stillness on the inside. This is your moment. This is your turning point. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because you have. You're thinking differently now. You're seeing clearly. You're speaking life over yourself again. You're standing taller, not with pride, but with promise. Not with fear, but with faith. From this day forward, walk like someone who's not bound by confusion. Love like someone who's not crippled by insecurity. Live like someone who knows they're equipped. Live like someone who is no longer controlled by the chaos around them, but who moves through life with the assurance that they're grounded, guided, and deeply secure. You don't have to strive for it anymore. You just have to receive it. Peace belongs to you. Clarity belongs to you. Strength belongs to you. And so does a sound mind.